my deepest blue, but I'll be watching you from here.
Hi, my name's Amanda Easton. I'm a performer, singer-songwriter from Sydney, Australia. I make retro-inspired theatrical electronic pop. But when I'm not doing my own music, I do
cabaret,
cover band gigs, solo gigs, tribute shows, recording sessions. Welcome to my Circle of Light vlog.
But I'll be watching you. See all the dreamers in the circle of.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. It's an hour later in the US. That's all right, isn't it? 7 o'clock, although it's probably getting in the way of dinner. Hi, Sydney. I hope you maybe had an earlier dinner. Hi, Stu. Good morning. How are you? I don't know what it's like where you are, Stu, but here it's half the sky looks really beautiful and blue and cloudy, and the other half looks like it's about to pour. So who knows? It's Tuesday, of course, here in Sydney, but it feels like Monday, and I've got to admit, I'm shattered. This is me. Oh, Smokey's shattered too. And yes, that's live. I know she's not moving, but morning, Grace. How are you? But Smokey's obviously. Oh, you've got dinner in front of you, Sydney. That's a good idea. That is a good idea. Okay. Smokey. Hi, Larry. How are you? Nice to see you. So, yes, that Smokey crashed out just near my feet. And it's kind of how I'm feeling, I've got to say. Usually a Monday is my day of rest and rejuvenation after a big weekend of gigs. But of course, hi Shane, how are you? Nice to see you. Of course, it's been a long weekend, and I guess everybody's had a long weekend with Easter. Hi Negro, nice to see you from the Philippines. So we have got the Philippines, Australia, the US, Japan. Have I missed anybody? You have to remind me where you're from. No interruptions from Smokey today. Well, you never know. She might suddenly decide to jump up and put her bottom into the camera if we're lucky. But yes, I've got to say, normally Monday is the day that I have a big rest. But of course, it was Easter Monday and I had a gig, which I'm very happy about, of course. But it means today I'm a little bit wrecked. And the thing is, when gigs started coming back, but it was still COVID times like it is now, a lot of the venues started doing double shows. Canada, we have Canada. Hi, Paul. How are you going? So some of the venues are having double shows. And I tell you what, that's hard work. It makes sense because it means that, with restricted numbers, the venue can obviously get in closer to what they would normally need. Sunshine Coast. Hi, Peter. How are you going? I hope it is nice and sunny where you are. We've got half a sky of sun and half a sky of looks like it's going to rain. But yeah, so these venues are doing double shows, an early show and a late show, and it means we have to do the show twice. And twice in one night. It depends on the show, but it's pretty full on. And it is, it's actually a really clever idea. The shows are slightly shorter than they used to be able to fit into, but it still feels like 2 full shows when you're performing them. And assuming we get paid extra, which most of the time we do if they have the numbers, then it's a really great idea. You know, some people love coming to early shows so they can go home and go to bed or go somewhere else, and other people like the late ones. So it's funny how COVID brings in these new ideas that we might never have thought of. But from our point of view, Germany, Barbara, we missed you last week. And I was wondering if the time difference maybe wasn't so good for you then. But now that we're back an hour and you guys are probably forward an hour, I'm assuming, I think we've evened up again. You've got Peter and Paul. That's right. We have got Peter and we've got a Paul. We do. I don't think I know a Mary, but if you are a Mary and you're listening, make sure you put up your hand and say hi. So yes, these double shows that we're having are very, very tiring. So I'm a very, very tired bunny today. So I'm only going to do a little bit of singing. I hope you forgive me. But I've had such a huge weekend, long weekend of gigs. And with the double shows on top of that, it's just, ooh. And my voice is still asleep because it's morning anyway, so double whammy. But, let's have a chat. And I've got some videos to show you. And I will sing a couple of songs as well, of course. Good morning, good morning. Oh, a bit overcast there too for Peter. Even I thought on the Sunshine Coast like it never was anything but sunny. But I mean, obviously that's not true. It's just that's the way it gets advertised, and that's what every time I go there, it's such beautiful weather. Thanks, Sydney. So I wanted to actually talk about the gig I did yesterday. I do a lot of really different kinds of gigs. Partly because I love it and I like a bit of variety, but partly just to, it's not easy being a full-time singer. I'm sure that's the same in every country, certainly here. And it's funny, you meet people and they say, what band are you in? I go, oh, well, this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And I reel them off because it's really difficult for one band to make a living. You can't just be in one band, unless I suppose it's the Rolling Stones or something like that. But from my point of view, I can't just be Amanda Easton and do my original thing. That certainly won't pay the rent and put the food on the table. So, not just because of that, but because I actually love all the different things I do. I do a whole range of tribute shows, as you know, and, I do solo piano gigs and I do duos and I do backing vocals for major artists. And another thing I do is cabaret. Now, cabaret has two sides to it as far as I see it. It's kind of the more modern cabaret, which is a bit quirkier and a bit more alternative, I guess, and the Gaga versus Me show that I do, which is a mix of Gaga songs, Lady Gaga songs and my own with, funny stories in between. That's kind of what I would call modern cabaret. But there's also the cabaret that attracts an older crowd and is a little bit more traditional cabaret, which I also love, which tends to be in the big club theatres, the auditoriums that they have in clubs. And because it's an older crowd, you tend to choose older material to sing. And, obviously you always have to play to your audience to a certain extent. And that's the kind of gig I did yesterday. And that was at Juniors, which is a football club. So for the non-Australians, we have what we call RSL clubs, which are Returned Soldiers League. So they're dedicated to soldiers that have fought in different wars, but they basically are a community club. So people join for, nothing, $10-15 a year, and they get membership to a club which has all different lounges and entertainment options and food and bars, and they're really good places for entertainers because there's so many different options. Nothing wrong with an older crowd, not at all. In fact, Stu just said nothing wrong with the older crowd. I find actually an older crowd tends to be more interested in being engaged in what's happening on the stage. They listen to the things you're talking about in between the songs, because sometimes a younger crowd doesn't. I think I'm really trying to bring my son, who's 11, I'm trying to bring him up understanding entertainment from a more, I don't know, from my point of view in a way, but from a more old-fashioned point of view, which I think is the right point of view, that if there's an entertainer in a place, they should get your attention to a certain extent. And, talking too loudly when someone's playing is not really polite, and you should always clap after a song. And, even if it's not something that you love, that person is doing their best. And I think it's really important to react a certain way and to appreciate live entertainment, because we already know it can be taken away from us. It's happened this year and last year. So I think it does need to be appreciated. It doesn't mean you have to love all the music that you hear, but I think a certain amount of, I mean, I'm going to get onto this point later, but most of us don't do it for the money. I can tell you that. Grant, hello. No, you didn't miss anything. In fact, I've been saying, Grant, that I had a really big weekend of gigs, and I'm because it's Easter Monday yesterday. I worked when I normally would have a day off and rest, and so I'm really, really quite tired today. So I'm probably going to prattle on and maybe sing a bit less, but I have got a song for you that we spoke about on the messaging. So yes, an older crowd sometimes is a better crowd because they maybe have been brought up with that respect for live entertainment that sometimes younger people haven't. And I'm not saying all younger people are disrespectful by any means, but I think they're less used to going to a place where there's live entertainment because there's so many entertainment options and there's always so much stuff on a screen. Sometimes they treat you like you're a screen. I mean, I've had people, hi Alan, nice to see you. I've had people watch me perform and talk about me and they're right there. I mean, just because I'm on a stage doesn't mean I can't hear you. I remember these two girls sitting, I think I was doing a duo, and they're only sitting at, a couple of rows or tables back from where I was. And I heard them saying how horrible my shoes were. I mean, you got to laugh. The thing is with me, I'm not shy. And so if I hear people talk about me, I'll totally call it out. And I'm the one with the microphone. Because it happened another time. I was at the basement and these men didn't like my stockings. I was wearing fishnet stockings. Who doesn't like fishnet stockings? Anyway, so I heard them say it. And so I totally gave them a hard time over the microphone and they were, don't mess with the girl with the microphone. But it is funny how sometimes people think that almost you're a screen and so they can say what they want. And, yeah, my shoes look great. Want to see them? No, it's probably a terrible view. I'm not going to kick my leg up any further. I've got no shoes on, is what I was trying to say. So, yes, you can talk about my attractive feet. I mean, no one has attractive feet, I don't think. But the gig on the Easter Monday yesterday that I did was the more traditional old-fashioned kind of cabaret, which, as I said, I love. And the way these things work is you have a house band. So it's the band that always plays on that particular day or week or whatever it is. And you have to bring these charts that, music charts that I can't even fit my hands in the screen. They can, once you undo them, they can be this big, and they put them in front of the musicians, and they just play it cold. They just read it on the spot, which takes a lot of skill, and some of the much younger musicians don't have that skill anymore because it is kind of an older cabaret thing. And so you turn up with your charts and they just play them, and they're your backing band and it's your show, and there's a lot of talking. And it's normally with these kind of cabaret things, people don't dance because it's one of those shows. It's a show more than a gig. So people are actually watching you, listening to what you're saying. There's, a bit of talking back and forwards. You might ask things of the audience. And, cabaret tells a story. I think that's the difference. Cabaret is about the talk, and it's about the story, the thread that weaves the songs together. And so it tends not to be the kind of show that you would dance at. But in Australia, dancing, I think it's everywhere, but certainly here in Sydney, dancing has just been allowed again after not being allowed for so long. And, we haven't had a COVID case in Sydney for a couple of months now. There have been like one or two in Queensland, and it did mean that an entire festival got canned. And you know what we're like in Australia, we have one case and everything gets shut down. And part of me is happy about that and part of me goes, hang on. But in Queensland, the really sad thing about it was actually northern New South Wales, almost Queensland, Byron Bay, beautiful part of Australia. That part, this festival is usually bringing in a whole lot of international acts and has some Australian acts playing as well. It's a blues and roots festival. And I've gone a lot of times. It goes over 4 days, and people camp and people, you know, it's not quite Woodstock. It's a little bit less muddy, but the same kind of idea. And this year, because of COVID, they were going to make it all Australian, which is so great for Australian blues and roots acts, that they got to be, you know, high up on the bill where normally they would be pushed down from the international acts. And people were so excited about it. A lot of my friends were going to be part of it and going, and it got canned the day before because we had a couple of cases in the area. But the problem is, of course, it's the new strain, which is meant to be more contagious. And there was all sorts of reasons they said they canned it. But the thing about Australia is, you know, we had the Australian Open, the tennis, and there were a few cases then, but that didn't shut down. And football happens regardless of how many cases are around. And it's just, music is considered such a secondary thing in this country. It's really, really sad. So musicians are up in arms about it, which is not surprising. So it's very, very sad. But that's why you've got to celebrate the little wins. And the fact that dancing has allowed again back in venues is very exciting. And so I wanted to show you just a little bit of one of my friends took some video, and normally I would never show it to you. It's such a novelty seeing people dance. And so I purposely chose songs that were more dancey, that I don't consider so cabaret-ish, and I encouraged people to come on the dance floor where I wouldn't normally in cabaret, just because how exciting that we can dance. So this is the club.
Family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing and dance. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Everyone can see we're together.
And you can see people are so joyous on the dance floor. It's such a lovely thing to see, the smiles on people's faces, you know. Isn't it that thing that you take stuff for granted until it gets taken away? And I mean, that's how I've been feeling about gigs in general, but the fact that people can dance, that's such a new thing. It's only been a week or so. And yeah, the joy on people's faces. So I was really encouraging the dancing. So Sydney's asking, when does footy season begin? Because I was at that little bit of footage was from the Rabbitohs home club, which is South Juniors. And a lot of the clubs are kind of football-based clubs. But I have no idea, Sydney, because I'm a terrible Australian. I just don't follow sport. And, you know, most Australians, including girls, which I know is a less traditional thing, but most girls are really into sport as well. But I'm not one of them. I'm a bit crap at that stuff. So it's autumn at the moment, so I'm assuming it's still a few weeks off before football starts. But then I have no idea. Stu, are you still there? If you're still there, you may know. You may be able to answer that question for Sydney. Okay, so if you've just joined us, hello and welcome. Oh, there you go. That's how much I know. They started 3 weeks ago. Yeah, when it comes to sport. Ask Stu, not me. If you've joined me a bit later, I'm talking about how I'm a little bit tired today because I've done a lot of gigs over the weekend. And so I won't be singing much. I hope that's okay. But I'm so happy just to be here and have a chat anyway. So this is me basically. I don't know what her excuse is. I mean, Smokey's done nothing all weekend, yet she's still crashed out. And you know I do have to wake her up in a little while, otherwise she'll wake us up in the middle of the night. But I will sing a couple of songs, ones that, oh, you know, it's funny because it's the 80s today, right? That was the theme for today. And I love 80s music. It's so much fun. But the songs that are written in the 80s, I don't know, there's something about them a little bit similar to the 60s, I find, in that the melodies particularly strong, like really catchy, strong melodies, but they have a lot of range in them. And so a lot of the songs that I'd chosen to sing today are really quite demanding vocally. And that's what makes them fun normally. But because I'm so tired today, I'm going to wimp out. So I hope you forgive me. But this next song isn't so difficult. But I tell you what, I've got some great songs lined up for next week because I will do them next week. Let's do the 80s again next week. But in the meantime, this is one of my favourite 80s bands. It's quite appropriate too because it is a little bit rainy outside.
Here comes the rain again, falling on my head like a memory, falling on my head like a new emotion. I wanna walk in the open wind, I wanna talk like lovers do, wanna dive into your ocean. Is it raining with you? So baby, talk to me like lovers do. Walk with me like lovers do. Talk to me like lovers do. Here comes the rain again, raining in my head like a tragedy, tearing me apart like a new emotion. I wanna breathe in the open wind, I wanna kiss like lovers do, wanna dive into your ocean. Is it raining with you? So baby, talk to me like lovers do. Walk with me like lovers do. Talk to me like lovers do. Here comes the rain again, falling on my head like a memory, falling on my head like a new emotion. I wanna walk in the open wind, I wanna talk like lovers do, wanna dive into your ocean. Is it raining with you?
Is it raining with you? It's not raining right now with me, but it was raining a second ago. They've only been showing rugby of Australia. So we have rugby union and rugby league. But when they say rugby, I think they mean union. So yeah, I'm not sure. Stu, has league started as well? I don't know. I wanted to show you, I wanted to play one of my oldest songs. It is raining there. There you go. It's very appropriate then. I wanted it to be appropriate for somewhere. I wanted to play you Bed of Roses. You thought the line was Bed of Roses. Oh, that's another 80s song. That's a great song too. Sunny outside for you, Stu. Oh, that's good. I wanted to play you a song from my first album because I was trying to think, obviously it wasn't the 80s, but my first album was heavily inspired by the 80s. You know, I spoke earlier about 80s melodies being, I think, really having a lot of movement in them, a lot of range, and really melodic. Because I know in some eras, and I love the 90s, that's probably like my era, but I think the melodies just didn't move as much. It was just a different fashion with music. And I think my first album was very 80s inspired, so I thought I might play you one of the singles from the 80s. And the song is called Falling In, and it pretty much is a straightforward love song, you know. And if you know me, you know I don't write a lot of love songs. A lot of the stuff I write is quite dark and, I was going to say miserable, but I don't think it's miserable. It's just melancholy. It's cloudy there in Japan. Ah, nice. Oh, all the football has started apparently. So there you go. I don't know why they're not showing the games to you, Sid. We'll have to talk to the people in charge and say, look, you realise you've got some fans in Arizona and they want to see what's going on. So yes, even though this song is a straightforward-ish love song, there's always a dark side. We've all got a dark side, and I like exploring mine. And so I think you probably pick up the darker sides more in the video than you do in the actual song. So I'll say no more and let you watch it.
Smiling in my sleep, feeling your warmth, your breath on my cheek, touching the highest place, reaching the earth and touching your face. You are my rescue. You are my fear. Falling, diving down, going deeper. Falling in, I'm falling into you. Standing on the shore, out of my depths, but starting to soar. You are my haven. You are my danger. Falling in, diving down, going deeper. Falling in, I'm falling into you. Falling in, diving down, going deeper. Falling in, experience of flying, feeling. Sure, I've been there in my dreaming, floating over 3 tons, 'cause I'm lighter than the air. Live a lifetime in one day, awake and I still feel that way. Your sweetness tingles on my tongue. It's just begun. Falling in, diving down, going deeper. Falling in, I'm falling into you.
You love the hat, Sydney. Unfortunately, those clothes didn't belong to me. That's, that was one of those really fun video shoots which don't happen so much nowadays, where you have a director and a producer and a videographer and a stylist and a makeup artist and a hair whatever, and now I'm everything. Well, that's not true. I do hire other people too. But I have more to do with my video clips nowadays, which is actually, my choice. I love being involved more on the creative side, but in that particular case, the clothes were borrowed. But I do love them. Looking back, going, I wish I did own those clothes. So yes, that was falling in from my very first album, which is called Amanda Easton, because I couldn't think up anything else. My brain was full after creating my first CD. But yeah, I think you can hear the 80s kind of vibe in it. I did a lot of gigs on the weekend. So if you have just joined us, you have to take my apology that I'm not going to be singing very much today because I'm very, very tired. I'm a little bit like this little creature here. This is Smoky Cam. You can see her breathing. It's not a photo. She's just been crushed out the entire day. Don't know what her excuse is. But yes, I've had gig upon gig this last weekend, which I'm definitely not complaining about. And in fact, I turned up to one of them and the sound engineer came up, and I really like this sound engineer. A sound engineer can make or break a singer, probably any musician. I think particularly a singer, because we have the least control over our sound once we're on stage, because all the mixer and the effects and everything is with the sound engineer in most cases. So what they give you is what you get. And of course you have control over your actual instrument, but over a band that are all amplified and they've got all their own knobs and whatever, they have a lot of control. We have to just hope that the sound engineer gives us enough of our own voice that we can hear over the incredibly loud guitars and drums and everything that's going on as well as the actual tone. And so a sound engineer that's not very good at their job can just break you. It's just hugely an issue with singers. And the Disco Disconnected album, that's definitely got some 80s vibes too. I mean, I love the 80s, so there's probably 80s vibes in everything I do. So yes, and when I saw this particular sound engineer, because sometimes you don't know who's going to be the sound engineer on the gig at the time because it changes. And I was very happy because he's very good at his job and he's a really nice guy. But I don't know what was going on with him. I understand nobody can be completely responsible for themselves after the last year. They can't be expected to be 100% their usual self, is what I'm trying to say. And he was very negative, and it was unlike him, not like the guy that I knew. And he would say, I don't really want to be here, and this music stuff, I'm just over it, and he said, what have you been up to? And I told him, that gigs were coming back and I was very excited because I released a new album. Oh, what's the point of that? Won't do any good anyway. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's already done okay. I managed to get an American signing for their vinyl. Oh, yeah, well, what's that going to get you? And the whole thing was, what's that going to get you? What's that going to do? And it really got me thinking. And then he said, so, why are you even doing this gig today? And I just said, because I love it. And he stopped in his tracks because that's the obvious thing. And I didn't really have to think about that. That's why I do all of this. And he actually came up to me later and he didn't apologise directly, but kind of, one of those apologies. It's not an apology, but you know what they meant. And I like to think that just that comment kind of turned him around a little bit, because I know it's easy to be negative, especially at times like this. And there's fear, and there's fear for your job as well as fear for your life, I suppose you could say, and change. And, things aren't going to be exactly the same as they were, but they never are. Things change and flux is part of life, and that's all good. But I feel like I'm so lucky that I am still gigging. I'm so lucky that I'm tired today because I'm tired from gigging. Like, how lucky am I? It's fantastic. And maybe the gigs will be different. Maybe I'll have to work harder, do 2 shows in a night instead of 1 and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. I never did this job for the money. Oh my God. That is the furthest thing. And in fact, I had a conversation with one of my friends recently, and I really shocked him when he asked me how much things cost, especially the making of an album. So I'm going to tell you, and I'm not telling you to make, so that you feel sorry for me or anything like that. And I'm certainly not asking anybody to give me this money, but I want to, just because it's interesting, I think, and people don't know. Like, it completely depends, because to make an album can cost as long as a piece of string. And it depends what you do yourself, obviously, and who you hire. An album can cost $1 million, and I'm sure someone like Taylor Swift would be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to make an album, but she makes that money back. Not many people do. But say for me, I've got a little studio set up here so I can record my vocals and I can record my piano and guitars. But apart from that, the actual production is done by a producer, because that's not my skill. So I have 2 different producers that I've been using lately, one in Poland, one in the US. And to get one song produced, so that means I send them a demo, I send them the vocals, guitars if there are any, and piano, and I give them a direction that I want the song to go. But then they do clever stuff that, I'm not very good at. And that will cost me around $1,500, so just for one song. But that song then needs to be mixed and mastered. So there's another couple of $100 extra to have that done. So on an album of 11 songs, obviously, I don't know, that's $15,000 minimum. Then, of course, to actually press it onto a CD, it's another couple of dollars each, CD, but a couple of $1,000s all up to get the pressing done. Vinyl is ridiculously expensive, which is why I was so happy to be signed to an American label, because they paid the pressing costs up front. So it means it gets taken out, obviously, of my profit share, but at least that's $5,000 that I don't have to pay up front. And then, so that's the actual making of the music. Forget the time that gets put into it. You don't ever even think about that. If you hire other instrumentalists, obviously you have to pay them, and that's generally $200 a song approximately. And obviously you don't consider the gear that you've spent, which costs thousands of dollars as well. And then after that, making a video clip can be, again, as long as a piece of string. It can, for me, I tend to spend probably no more than $1,000 nowadays. In the old days, it would have been a lot more. But I do my own editing and I produce myself because I want to. But there's still plenty of, other costs, venue costs, and actually $1,000 is cheap. It's probably, you're not going to get away with it that cheap. Even just to get a venue is at least $500. Then there's makeup and costumes and all that kind of stuff. Then there's the advertising of the actual product, which is another few $1,000. Photo shoot, about $2,500, and that's without the hair and the makeup and the costumes. And anyway, I worked out. So for me, if I was going to release an album as often as I wanted to, I reckon I would do one every year. But at the minimum, it costs around $25,000 to $30,000 to create that. And that's including the photography and the covers and the advertising of it and whatever else. And it can be more, can't be much less. But I don't have a spare $30,000 every year. And if you break even as an independent artist on the release of an album, that's considered majorly fantastic. Most people don't. So you can see why I go out and many people go out and do cover shows, because I can turn up to a gig and get paid really well. And of course, I've prepared and I've trained and I've done all that stuff over years, but it's way less work than, putting out recordings. And, I'm sure there are some indie artists that do well, but not that many. I mean, there's people like Amanda Palmer, who is an independent artist who does extraordinarily well, but it's all through crowdfunding. She has people, her fans, pay her every month to create. And it's really hard to just put out CDs and records and, Spotify and whatever else you do and actually make a profit. So this is not a whinge, I'd like to say. And if you're just joining me now, I'm just explaining because a lot of people don't know. And so to be an original artist, sometimes I call it my very expensive hobby. And it's my gigs that I do every weekend and the session work that I do and all that kind of stuff that kind of pays for it. So if it ever pays for itself, and it has for me, I've been very lucky that it has broken even many times, then, big tick. So there you go. Sydney, book I'm reading now is The Birth and Rise of MTV. Yes. Oh, thank you. So, yeah, in the old days, MTV used to be music TV, right? You don't see much music on it anymore. And in those days, people made really expensive music videos. And I love those big fancy videos. But, with all the studies they've done on what actually appeals to people, often it's not the most expensive, but I think a video has to have some heart in it, and that doesn't always cost the earth. But I'm looking forward to doing at least one fancy-ish video for the Wallflower album. And if all goes well, I intend to launch the video along with Wallflower as the single, which, by the way, is my personal favourite song on the album. So you might not have heard it yet unless you have the album already, because I haven't released it as a single. I want to release it closer to the actual launch, the official launch, which is also the vinyl launch, which is July 22. So please put that in your diaries. You'll be receiving ticket links from me soon because it's going to be a big live stream. And I thought I would show you the kind of show that it's going to be. Lots of talk on the cost of videos, 10K to 300K. And I'm talking about doing one for $1 or $2,000. That was 80s money, yeah. Oh, people spent money on music, and all the associated stuff in the 80s just like crazy. But, it made money too. There was no streaming issues because obviously now, things like Spotify, you make 0.01 cent per stream. And so you have to have a lot of streams in order to get any profit. But in those days, you didn't have to compete with that. So, yeah, it's crazy. But the kind of live stream show I'll be doing for the launch of Wallflower on July 22nd, which is at the Civic in Sydney for those who are local, but it's going to be very heavily focused on the live stream as well. I've chosen a venue that's set up specifically with multiple cameras and that kind of thing specifically for live streaming. But I'm going to do, obviously, a lot of songs from the Wallflower album. I'll do a few of my older songs and probably a couple of covers too, because so much of my life is covers and, my gosh, there are so many great songs in the world. And what I did at the launch of, I think this was Disco Disconnected. Yes. I chose a few of my older songs that probably had dated more so than the recent ones. Having said that, I like retro, but sometimes even for retro it sounds dated. I chose a song from my first album, Skin, and I mashed it up to try and, change the vibe and make it a bit more current, I guess. But I want to show you first the music video that I did, or part of it, just for those who haven't heard it and just to remind you for those who have, the music video of Skin. This was another pretty fancy, bigger budget one too. And I watched this Japanese movie at some stage, and I wish I could remember the name so I could watch it again. But I watched this video. It was a bit of a dark kind of, horror video, but it had a man would paint on the skin of his victims. And so he was painting all these, Japanese letters and then using the skin for something or other. But I thought, okay, there's something in this that will work for my music video, Skin, being skin as the canvas. It ended up only being quite a small part of the music video, but you can see where I got the idea from. And this is shot in an old church. It's a Gothic church. It's beautiful. trying to think of the name of it. It's in Cleveland Street in Sydney. So I hired the venue because it felt like it had that really dark gothic vibe that I was after, because I always like the darkness, you know, in my songs. But I'll just play you a little bit of it. The gentleman that plays the canvas was actually the brother of my boyfriend at the time. My boyfriend didn't want to do it. And his brother was a firefighter at the airport, so muscly. He had the physique that he didn't mind showing off. So I'll just show you a little bit of it before I want to show you a live version I did at the launch.
No matter how tight I hold you, I feel too far away. I just can't get close enough to you. I wanna be your pain. Our bodies clamped together, even that is not enough. I wanna be joined forever, don't wanna ever give you up. If I move real slow in your direction, could I take a step into another dimension? Skin on skin, wanna get closer, wanna get right in under your skin, where the world can get me, you can lock me in. Skin on skin, wanna get closer, wanna get right in under your skin, where the world can get me, you can lock me in.
So, yes, I think I had quite a lot of fun that day. So at the launch, the Disco Disconnected album launch, I did a version of Skin, and I changed it up a little bit. And I've got a little bit of footage from the launch that I want to show you, but I'm talking about, I'm not quite sure where the conversation came from, but I was just watching it back yesterday, and I'm talking about people dancing men in Australia dancing. Now, Stu, I'm sure this is not the case with you because you're such a music lover, but when I was growing up, a lot of the boys my age just didn't dance. I think that's changed now. It kind of wasn't cool for an Australian man or boy to dance, and I think that's turned around, but it just meant that boys weren't very good dancers in Australia. As I said, I'm sure that's not the case with you, Stu, or you, John, or any other of my Australian friends that are here. So this is the live version of Skin that I did at my launch. It was a mashup.
All the boys I knew were into football and surfing. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's about all they were into. They certainly weren't dancers or particularly... We have a lot of nods of recognition down here. And the only reason that you would get a boy like that up on the dance floor is because he thought he was going to get a pash, basically, and that was all that it was about. Do you remember we used to call it the Sydney sidestep? Do you remember that? That's what the boys would get up on the floor. I know that doesn't include any of the gentlemen that are here tonight at all. But this next song is one of my first attempts at disco, but I wrote it a very, very long time ago, and it's going to sound terribly dated, so I've mashed it up with another couple of songs that I think you might recognise. If you feel like doing a Sydney sidestep where you are, please feel free. I feel too far away. I just can't get close enough.
close, I wanna get right in. Get under your skin, but well, yeah, you can lock me in. It's gotta be big. 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 Skin on skin. Wanna get close, you wanna get right in. Right under your skin, but well, yeah, you can lock me in. Skin on skin. Wanna get close, you wanna get right in. Right under your skin, but well, yeah, you can lock me in. It's gotta be big. 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 Skin. Wanna get close, wanna get right in. Get under your skin, but love me, yeah, you can lock me in. Skin on skin. Wanna get close, wanna get right in. Get under your skin, but love me, yeah, you can lock me in.
Thank you, Terry.
So there you go. How cool is that stage? Of course, that was my main reason for wanting to perform in that venue. That stage is so brilliant. And that's where I shot the Disco Disconnected music video as well. You might have recognised it. And Stu, yeah, it's funny. You don't, even when you're in the venue, you can't always see that stage, which is why I had a camera set up kind of from above. It's a 2-level place up on the mezzanine so that you can see that beautiful stage, Michael Jackson inspired stage. So I am going to sing another song. It's actually cheekily from the 70s, but I promised Grant I would do it. And it's got a good 80s story, so I think I have a good excuse to do it. So it's a David Bowie song, and he wrote it about the Berlin Wall, a lover on either side. I'm not sure which one was on which, but one's in East Berlin, one's in West Berlin. So they're separated by the wall. And I went to Berlin. In fact, if you can see this little earring here, that was my commemoration of being in Berlin. I've got a tattoo on my back that's a commemoration of living in Japan. Every now and again, if I visit a place that has a really profound effect on me, I feel like I want some kind of souvenir. And when I was in Berlin, it's got to be, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years ago. So well after the wall, already come down. But there were a lot of people with piercings and tattoos and that kind of thing. And the one on the left was West Berlin. That makes sense. There were a lot of people with piercings, and I just found it just a place brimming with creative energy. I just fell in love with Berlin. It's one of my favourite cities in the world. I just loved it. And I got to do some gigs there too, which was amazing. But I was fascinated by the whole wall thing. Of course, I'd heard of it, but I read a lot more into the way it all happened. But I had some German friends that I'd met through other people, and I ended up staying in the East on Prenzlauer Berg. Probably my pronunciation is terrible, but it's the really cool part of East Berlin. And it still has, some of the old cars and they used to have front house and back house with the apartment blocks, and we were staying in a back house. And there was still a lot of remnants of the East. And in fact, we were staying with people like young people our age, but their parents had lived through that whole time, and the stories that we heard, I found it so fascinating. And of course, I went to visit, the remnants of the wall and everything that are still there in Berlin. But something I didn't know was this song, Heroes, that was written about lovers across the divide. David Bowie performed it in the 80s, which is why I've got the excuse of playing it today. And I think the wall came down in 1989. I'm terrible with dates, so I might be wrong, but in the late 80s. And it was only a couple of years before he actually performed his song, at the Reichstag, the Parliament building. And people say it was one of the performances of his life. I guess it was just so appropriate. And in the end, he was given some kind of, I'm not sure what it was, just a public appreciation for singing that song and how it was actually important in the decision to bring the wall down in the end. So the song has so much meaning, and I love Dave Bowie at the best of times. But yes, the 80s version of the song he did was particularly important. So there you go.
I wish you could swim like the dolphins can swim. Oh, nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever. Oh, we can be heroes just for one day. I will be king. And you will be queen. For nothing will drive them away. Oh, we can be heroes just for one day. We can be honest just for one day. I can remember standing by the wall and the guns shot over our heads, and we kissed as though nothing could fall, and the shame was on the other side. Oh, we can beat them forever and ever. We can be heroes. Oh, we can be heroes. Oh, we can be heroes just for one day. We can be heroes just for one day.
So Grant's saying, yes, you saw him live. I did too. I saw him live in Sydney and I loved it. I also saw him a couple of times, and yeah, one of the best concerts I've ever been to. both times. I love David Bowie. So thank you for requesting that song and, you know, letting me do a cheeky 80s version of it. But, you know, I will be back next week with a lot of the really big 80s hits that I love. In fact, at my casino gig on Sunday night, I got a request for a song I adore. And I was talking last week how I should have a segment called Daggy But Awesome. And this song definitely fits into that category. And it's good because I didn't do any ABBA during the 70s theme that I was doing the last couple of weeks. But of course, ABBA had hits in the 80s too. And this song, which is definitely daggy but awesome, is The Winner Takes It All by ABBA. Oh, who else loves that song? If you loved it, would you admit it? It's so daggy, but it was one of those songs that I just had to pull up the chart and do it on the spot. But I feel like I was born with ABBA in my brain, like there was a chip. And I don't know, it's because I had older cousins that played it when I was really little, or I don't know, but I feel like ABBA songs are just there. So I so enjoyed performing that song, and I'm going to do it next week. So before I go, I've got to play you a funny animal video, and this is one I discovered. This was actually taken in Georgia, and I'm not talking about the American state. I'm talking about the used to be Soviet state, and I think it's just cute.
მამუკა კობახიძეს ეთამაშება შავი ცუგა, რომელიც შემოვიდა სტადიონზე. თუ დაიმატებენ, უარზე არ იქნება.
ყოჩა, როი
მოასვენიერა.
ყოჩა. როგორ უჯერებს, ნახეთ.
თამაში
არა, როინი უნდა მიუშვან ისე.
So this dog just wanted a cuddle, and he didn't realise that he was playing on a nationally televised football game. Isn't that so gorgeous? I just want you to pat my tummy, please. Oh, I think that's so lovely. So I do want to play just part of another song because I really appreciate especially people that come to my live streams, you know, regularly. I just so appreciate you, you know, spending the time with me. And this is actually a 70s song, but Grace, my friend Grace, who was my flatmate, by the way, in Japan, if you didn't know, and she requested this song, and it's a song, again, that I haven't done before, but I've heard, of course, a lot. So I'm just going to do a little bit for you, Grace. I hope that's okay. I thought it was also appropriate since I did a rain song earlier, and it's looking like it's going to rain here today in Sydney. So this is for you, Grace. Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming
yesterday and days before. Sun is cold and rain is hard, I know. Been that way for all my time, till forever on it goes, through the circle fast and slow, I know. And it can't stop, I wonder. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day? Oh, that was for you, Grace. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be back next week with the 80s. I did one 80s song today. Oops. But there are so many. So stretching out the 80s is always going to be a good thing in my book. I hope you enjoyed today. I put a little tip jar link at the bottom if you are so inclined, but please never feel obliged. I'm just really happy to have you here, and I will see you next week at the same time. So hopefully we know what the time is now. We're not changing clocks anymore. We're done. Hopefully you are as well. I look forward to seeing you with more 80s next week. Thank you. See ya. From all there is to be.